Night of fireworks between President Trump and his Secretary of State,
including name-calling and frustrations that reportedly led to an intervention to prevent Secretary Rex Tillerson from resigning. KCAL9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with this story. Dave.
Yeah, and whether you believe the specifics here, it's still one more sign that there is plenty of turmoil in the White House. There were denials all around, and for public consumption today, the President and Secretary of State Tillerson are the best of buddies. But the reality is the list of conflicts between them seems to grow longer every day, even including President Trump's hardcore political attack speech last summer to the Boy Scouts. At a hastily called State Department news conference, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson made it clear he was here to set the record straight about reports that he called President Trump a moron in front of other national security officials at the Pentagon last summer, and had to be talked out of resigning and walking away from the State Department after a series of policy disputes and personal clashes with the White House, such that Vice President Mike Pence reportedly ultimately had to step in and convince Tillerson not to resign, as reported by the Washington Post, which quoted senior administration officials.
To address a few specifics that have been erroneously reported this morning. The Vice President has never had to persuade me to remain as Secretary of State because I have never considered leaving this post.
But when asked about the moron comment, the Secretary of State sounded offended by the suggestion, but did some fancy dancing around the question without simply denying he said it.
Could you address the main headline of this story that you called the President a moron? And if not, where do you think these reports or
I'm not going to deal with petty stuff like that. I mean, this is what I don't understand about Washington. Again, you know, I'm not from this place, but the places I come from, we don't deal with that kind of petty nonsense. And it is intended to do nothing but divide people. And I'm just not going to be part of this effort to divide this administration.
Operating under the assumption that Tillerson would have simply denied he ever made such a statement if he hadn't. Several hours later, reporters pushed the State Department spokesperson to clarify.
The widespread perception is that he did not dispute that part of the report because it's true.
Well, let me clarify that. The Secretary does not use that type of language. The Secretary did not use that type of language to speak about the President of the United States. He does not use that language to speak about anyone. So I hope that clarifies it.
He never said that.
He did not say that.
The President himself, asked about it during his visit to Las Vegas on Wednesday, also denied the name-calling report, lashing out at his favorite target, the Free Press, and praising Tillerson.
Yeah, I'm very honored by his comments. It was fake news. It was a totally phony story. Thank you very much. It was made up. It was made up by NBC. They just made it up. Thank you all.
CBS News reports the president was told Tillerson made the remark after this July meeting at the Pentagon, just a few days after the president had blown up at Tillerson over sharply different views on the Iran nuclear deal. Tillerson was frustrated, too. He'd been undermined on other key issues, including Venezuela and a Middle East dispute. And CBS reports it became personal for Tillerson, a longtime supporter of the Boy Scouts, when President Trump made comments like this at a July Boy Scout jamboree in West Virginia.
Who the hell wants to speak about politics when I'm in front of the Boy Scouts, right?
The president, on the other hand, was personally frustrated with Tillerson's reluctance to defend his equivalency remarks about the Charlottesville violence and killing.
I think there's blame on both sides.
The president speaks for himself.
The latest insult came this weekend when President Trump tweeted that the Secretary of State should stop wasting his time by trying to start talks with North Korea. On Wednesday, he said he has total confidence in Tillerson. Now, Republican Senator Bob Corker said in response to the latest turmoil that Tillerson is in an incredibly frustrating place. And then he went on to call him one of 3 administration officials who are, quote, separating our country from chaos. Again, Corker is a Republican. The other 2 named by Corker as protecting the country from chaos are General John Kelly, the White House Chief of Staff, and General James Mattis, the Secretary of Defense. Jeff?
You know, I'm thinking of a couple issues going on right now. North Korea, of course, Puerto Rico is going on. So does this reported dispute between the President and the Secretary of State affect any of this, you think?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes at a very crucial time. The first critically important international issue now is obviously, as you said, North Korea, already the source of some of the friction between the President and Secretary of State, as we pointed out. But not as well known as another crucial diplomatic project Rex Tillerson's working hard on. That is President Trump's decision on whether to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. Now, the deadline is looming on that decision a week and a half from today, October 15th. Tillerson is working with Congress on this and is trying to save the deal, but at the same time find a way to keep up the pressure on Iran to curb its nuclear program with verification. Jeff, Lena, back to you.